Hello, this video is Measures of Position Part 2. We're picking up with a slide titled Computing the Percentile of a Given Value. Previously, we computed the location of a percentile to find what the percentile was. Now we're going to be given a value from the data set and we get to figure out which percentile this is. So what if we wanted to go backwards, and what if we want to find out the percentile of a specific value? For instance, the person who scored a 77% on Miss Guzman's test would like to see what percentile their test score is. Now remember, a percentile separates the lower p% from the upper 100 minus p%. So we're going to begin by putting the numbers in order, just like we did before with the other type of percentile formula. Now once we put them in order, to calculate the percentile, you have to count the number of values that are less than the value that you were trying to compute the percentile of. So, and that can only be done by first putting the numbers in order and then counting them. You're going to add 0.5. Once you add 0.5, you'll divide by the number of numbers and you'll multiply times 100, and then you're going to round your answer to the nearest integer using normal rounding rules. Okay? Unlike the rules we use for when we use the location formula, if it was a decimal, we round it up no matter what. Here you round the normal way. Okay, so what percentile does a score of 77% correspond to on Miss Guzman's exam? And here are the exam scores. They go from 49 all the way up to 100. It looks like they are already in order, so you don't have to do that step. So what we want to do is we want to count the number of scores that come before 77. So how many scores are before 77? 49, 55, 69, 71, and 75. There are 5 scores. So because there are 5 values, we're going to add 5 to 0.5. That was what was in the formula. Let me just show you again the formula. So the number of values that are less than the value, add 0.5. Divide by n times 100. So 5 plus 0.5 divided by the number of values. If you count these out, there are 20 times 100. So you add the top first. You get 5.5 divided by 20 times 100. We do multiplication and division from left to right, so divide first. 5.5 divided by 20 is 0.275 times 100 is 27.5. Now, if we're finding a percentile that corresponds to a value, we need it to be a whole number, so we need to use regular rounding rules and round to the nearest integer. So the 0.5 tells the 7 to become an 8, so we actually round up here. So 77 is the 28th percentile. Okay. Quartiles. Quartiles are a special percentile that splits the data into quarters. Think of a dollar. A dollar is made up of 4 quarters. 1 quarter is 25 cents, 2 quarters is 50 cents, 3 quarters is 75 cents, 4 quarters is $1. I like to use that to help me to understand quartiles. So there are 3 special quartiles. Okay, quartile 1, think of again a quarter. That's the 25th percentile. Okay, quartile 2 is, think of 2 quarters, 50 cents. So the quartile 2 is the 50th percentile, which is actually the median. In Q3, think of 3 quarters as 75 cents. So the third quartile is the 75th percentile. Notice you can call them Q1, Q2, and Q3 for short. You can use the location formula that we learned in the last video to compute all of these, or you can use the calculator. The calculator will actually find these special quartiles for us much quicker. So to do it using the calculator, you're going to do it the same way we did to find the mean, the median, and the standard deviation. Once you put the data in your list, stat, edit, put your data in, say list 1, you're going to go back to stat, arrow right to calc, and choose number 1 var stats. And then that will give you your quartiles. So first we start by putting the numbers in the list, stat, enter, go into L1 or L2 or L3, whichever list you want to put it in your data. Then go to stat, arrow right to calc, choose number 1, var stats. This will pop up. Where it says list, you should have listed the list where your data is. So in our case, it's in L1. Frequency list should say blank, and you go to calculate. If you've got an older calculator, it'll just say 1 var stats at the top, and it will not have these prompts. In that case, the default is L1, so you don't need to enter anything other than enter. If your data is in some other list other than L1, that would be the only time you would enter anything after var stats if you have the older calculators. Once you do that and you hit calculate, it will populate with information. You'll see the X bar, you'll see your standard deviation. If you use the arrow pad and arrow down, you will continue to see more numbers populate. We've got a minimum Q1, that's the first quartile, the median or quartile 2, and Q3, which is the third quartile, the 75th quartile. And you'll see a maximum. But in this case, what we're interested in is Q1, Q2, Q3. This is how to get the calculator to find it without having to use the location formula. All right, so example 2, a physics class earned the following scores on an exam, and the exam scores are listed. We want to find the first quartile, the second quartile or the median, and the third quartile. So why don't you pause the video, make sure you go to stat, enter, and enter the data into the list, and then go to stat, calc, choose var stats, and then calculate, and see if you can find these 3 quartiles. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so hopefully you worked through these. You should get 57.5 for Q1, 62.5 for the median or Q2, and 74.5 for Q3. I wanted to walk through it in the calculator real quick. If you go to stat, hit enter, in L1 I've entered all of the data points in. I copied them from here. And then from here we go to stat, we arrow right to calc, we choose number 1 var stat, so I can just hit 1 or I can hit enter. List should say L1, frequency list. So let me just go back. If it doesn't say L1 or if you put it in a different list, let's say you put your list in L3. So let's change it to L3. Second 3. And so now that would find the mean of L3. Now we want the mean of L1 because that's where I put my data, so I'm going to hit second 1. Frequency list again stays blank. Calculate, hit enter, and then here we go. Now we start with the mean. Here's the sample standard deviation, the population standard deviation, the number of numbers. Keep scrolling down with the arrow pad, and you'll see Q1 is 57.5, Q2 or the medium is 62.5, Q3 is 74.5. Okay. All right. So next we're going to talk about the 5-number summary, which is something we actually just found with the calculator. But let me tell you specifically what it is. The 5-number summary is the last 5 numbers that the calculator gives us with var stats, which is minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and max. Okay, you saw those all listed. So this is listed with the quartiles when we calculate our var stats. So example 3, physics exam scores. Use the calculator to find the 5-number summary for the physics exam scores from example 2. So let me go back here real quick to the calculator. When we did var stats, here's the 5-number summary. 47, 57.5, 62.5, 74.5, and 95. And you would just list them in that order. Okay, so generally the way you write this down is you just list the numbers in order, the minimum first, and then followed by Q1, which is 57.5, followed by the median, then Q3, and last, the max. So you don't even have to label them as long as you put them in the order that the calculator gives it. So minimum, Q1, Q2 or the median, Q3, max. Just like that. All right. So next is box plots. So we're going to start this. We probably won't finish in this video. We'll probably have to go into the next part, but let's just go ahead and start it. So a box plot is a way that we graph the 5-number summary. So there's two types of box plots. There's your basic box plot and there's a modified box plot. On a test, you're going to be asked to do a modified box plot. So let's talk about the basic box plot first. So here's the basic box plot. This is an example of what one might look like. Okay, so basically the two endpoints are the min and the max, and then the 3 vertical lines of the box are made up of Q1, the median or Q2, and Q3. So you put them in order. Above, there's usually a number line at the bottom. Okay, so Q1 is a vertical line above Q1. There's a vertical line above the median, a vertical line above Q3. You'll connect these and form a box. Then you will draw a horizontal line from the middle of the Q1 out to the minimum, and the same thing from the middle of Q3 to the maximum. Okay, and that's your basic box plot. The shape will change. It might look a little more smushed or a little more spread out depending on the numbers. That's why it's important to show the number line at the bottom. Okay, so here is an example of for a box plot. So the following data are the numbers of pages in 40 books on a shelf. Construct a box plot. Okay, in order to construct the box plot, first we need to find the 5-number summary. So we're going to put the data into the list. So stat, enter, put your data in. Then we'll go to stat, calc, choose var stats, tell it which list, and go to calculate. And here's our 5-number summary: 136, 237, 322, 395, and 512. Okay, so let's start with Q1. Q1 is at 237, so I'm going to draw a vertical line. So here's 200, here's 250, 237. I'm guessing about right here. That's Q1. You can label it above right here if you want. I'm going to leave it. 322 is the median. So here's 300, here's 250, 322. About right there. And then the Q3 is 395, so it's just before 400. We're going to connect these and form a box. Okay. Then we're going to draw a horizontal line out to each of the min and the max. So the min was 136, so about right here. And the max was 512, so really close to 500. There we go. And you don't have to label anything as long as you do a good estimate of about where it falls, as long as you have the number line drawn with common intervals like I have down here. Okay. Now that's your basic box plot. So we're going to move on to the next video where I'll pick up with modified box plots. As always, email me if you have questions.